The idea of a multi-grafted fruit tree is so appealing. You get multiple different varieties or multiple different kinds of fruit on the same tree. Sounds so cool, but it's not so simple to maintain such a tree in the long run. Um, Let me give you a few ideas of how to do so. You can see that this tree has two different varieties by the look of their blossoms. On the right is a Snow Queen nectarine, and on the left is a Red Baron peach. There's always going to be one variety that grows more vigorously than the other. And you've got to make sure to prune the varieties, specifically prune the most vigorous variety back such that it doesn't overwhelm the less vigorous, the weaker variety. Here's another multi-graft tree. This pluot is mainly Flavor King, which is kind of a weak, well, not a weak, but just not a very strong grower. And there's a graft, maybe a quarter of the tree on the left side. You can see it's more leafed out than the rest of the tree. That's Splash Pluot, and that's a far faster growing Pluot variety. And so I've had to keep that in check such that it doesn't overwhelm the weaker growing Flavor King. So trimming the most vigorous variety back is one key, but you've got to first know where that variety is coming from. This is a cherry with two varieties. This main variety that hasn't leafed out, and then you can see this fully leafed out variety here. I like to paint where I've grafted, and then in addition to that, tag the graft. So this is a mini royal cherry graft, and I find these aluminum tags useful. I don't know of a better tagging method. However, I like to fasten the tie to a thin nursery tie rather than just putting that little wire on the branch, because pretty quickly the branch swells and will be girdled by that little wire. So I like to make a bigger loop with some nursery tie tape, some thin stuff that will expand easily, kind of like a rubber band. You might think you can get away without painting and tagging the branches on a multi-graft tree and continually renewing the paint or the labeling. For example, you might just say, look at the fruit. You know, you can see the difference in the leaves or the fruit. This is a multi-grafted mandarin tree. There's Shiranui or Sumo on one part, and then there's Pixie on the rest of it. The fruit's extremely different in size, and it's really obvious. However, what happens when the fruit comes off? Because pretty soon here, and within a month, there's going to be no fruit on this tree, and you're going to have to only identify the difference in the varieties by the foliage, and that's going to be difficult. So, as you can see, I've painted the graft there, but at some point that paint will even fade and break up, and you need to continually renew the painting and make it really easy to identify the different varieties, so that when you want to prune, you don't have to go fiddling around and searching or make the mistake of pruning the wrong branches. Make it easy on yourself. Lastly, from the very beginning, when you're planting or grafting a multi-grafted tree, try to orient the varieties if you know their vigor in the right way. So this is a multi-grafted avocado here, and this tall stuff in the back is Zutano. Zutano is a vigorous variety, so I sort of stuffed it in the back. And over here is Edronol. Edronol is on the side where it gets more sunshine and more southerly sunshine. And this is another weaker growing variety that is on the south side, so it gets more sunshine. So it would have been unintelligent for me to have put the Zutano in the front, because the Zutano would have been growing so fast and shading out the slower growing varieties. Let me show you where I kind of did make that mistake in the past on a pluot. Now this is a dapple dandy pluot, but right at the beginning when I planted this tree, I grafted in some flavor grenade, but unwisely, rather than grafting it in on the south side or a little higher up, I grafted it in down low. As you can see here, that's where the graft was, down low and on the kind of northwest side of the tree. And while it has grown over the years, it gets shaded out and overwhelmed by the more vigorous dapple dandy branches. And rather than continually cutting back the dapple dandy enough, I've just allowed the dapple dandy to overtake and shade the flavor grenade. So it's never been able to really become a high proportion of the canopy and a very fruitful part of the canopy. So not very smart if you want to have all the varieties or all the types in your multi-graft tree become a large portion of the tree.